Now, you may have seen the recent Oscar-nominated Dev Patel's film Lion, a story about a 5-year-old Indian boy who gets lost on the streets of Kolkata. And it's believed there are over 15 million kids on the street in South Asia and many more children out of school and any form of education. No one knows exact numbers, but UNESCO suggests Pakistan has around 2 million children sleeping rough and up to 13 million out of schooling. Well, a group of doctors from the Northwest have set up a number of centres across Pakistan to help kids on the street gain a better life. And to tell us more, joining me now is Professor Aftab Ahmed and Dr. Altaf Khattak from the Child Protection and Rehabilitation Trust. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting.
Dr. Aftab Ahmed, let's start with yourself. Just tell us a bit about Child Protection and Rehabilitation Trust and the work you're carrying out there in Pakistan at the moment.
Thanks, Talat. We all grew up in Pakistan, Talat, and when I was young, we would see these children on the street. We saw them, but not necessarily saw them, if you know what I mean. We would help them.
Part of the scenery.
That's it. They were part of the scenery. And my wife and I were recently in there, and midnight coming back, suddenly a 10, 11-year-old girl comes out and starts cleaning the windscreen. That was heartbreaking. And again, a lot of people, we see them, but nobody's doing anything about them. And the figures are right. There are more than 2 million people on the street. So a few years ago, my friend here, Mr. Khattak, he had that Newtonian moment when he suddenly saw one of those kids and say, what are we doing about it? And that's where the Child Protection and Rehabilitation Trust started, a charity where we think we started to do something and transforming their lives. And I think Altaf would tell us about that.
Let's bring in Dr. Altaf Khattak. So what was your experience then?
Thank you, Talat, for inviting both of us. Actually, it started quite a few years ago that my son was visiting along with me back home in Peshawar, and he went out with his cousins for an evening meal, and he saw a child actually peeping through the glass of the restaurant looking at them, and then he indicated as if he was hungry. So my son, who was at that time was about 11 years old, he picked up his burger and went out and gave it to the child. And then he told me the story that when the child looked at him, he pointed at the burger and pointed at himself, that meaning that, do you really mean to give me this burger? And when my son nodded, because he wasn't able to speak fluent Pashto, so the child put the burger on the ground and danced around it. And my son couldn't eat after that, and he came back and he was in tears. And then when the next day, as luck would have it, I, for the first time, realized a child picking up some stuff from the garbage dump in the street in front of our house. And I went up to him and I said that, what are you doing? And he said that, well, I'm picking up some stuff from here. And I said, what are you going to do with it? And he said that he would be selling it to the sort of recyclable, it's a recyclable material, and he would be selling it to some other people. And so I said, and what would you get? He said, about 50 rupees a day when I pick up all these things, and that will actually, what will you do with it? And he said, I'll give it to my mother so that it can carry on with this is my livelihood. That's how it all started.
Right. It's really interesting, your story actually, Altaf, because in the film Lion, there was a scene actually when there was the street boy was sitting out near some flyover and facing a restaurant, and there was a young man in the restaurant having his soup, and he was imitating him, and then he went out. Then I take it, if this individual didn't go out there to see this child and take him to the police station to say, he's a missing child, his life perhaps would have been very different. And you're absolutely right, because when you go to Pakistan and you go to the swishy-swashy areas of Pakistan and the city, and you go to a burger bar over there, and what one burger, which is roughly the same price that we pay for a burger meal over here, goes a long way for a family out there, doesn't it? Yeah. So initially, after that experience, then how then do you go into the whole process of then setting up centres and getting people involved and getting other medics involved? I mean, what was the next stage after that?
I came up with a few of my friends back home from childhood friendships, and we started with 50 children. That was the beginning of it, and that was in October 2012. That was the first center. And from there onwards, we actually carried on. And as luck would have it, I met on the way, Aftab Ahmed saw one of the videos which we made as a documentary, and he joined in. And the rest is history. Then I would give it to Aftab.
So Aftab, you saw the film and thought, oh, wow, something needs to be done here, or you wanted to get involved.
It was, I think, very clear. His passion was there, and I saw him sort of over the years doing it, but never saw what he... And you actually see the kids then. That video made us realize this is it. We have to do something, or somebody has to do something. So we started, first of all, I got it registered here. So we wanted it to be a registered charity. We wanted it to be transparent. We wanted accountability. So I organized all that, put the systems in. And I think the key thing was we didn't want any admin. So we started doing everything ourselves. So no money is going into anybody's expenses. They're all volunteers paying for it. And more importantly, when I went to different child protection charities who are doing the work, I'm sure, but there's more text than... So we started producing video reports on a weekly, 2 weekly. Every center sends in. And we've got 12 centers in all 4 provinces. So I think we are the only truly national child protection NGO now, which is registered in Pakistan as well as UK. Okay. So we get photographic evidence of the child's transformation from every center. And the way we work is that the idea behind this, the mission is, one, to give them their childhood back. They're on the streets. Yeah. They need to know what a child feels like. They need to feel happy. Then we try to show them dreams. We want them to dream about, because our kids want to do something because we showed them. And there's a myth that their parents just have them for earning money. And, that's a big myth.
That's the general understanding, isn't it?
I spoke to them, Talat, and I spoke to the parents, and it's untrue. They have dreams. Unfortunately, their dreams are limited to the streets because that's what they have seen. So what we are trying to do is show them the dream, find their potential, and take them to the next level, essentially to mainstream education.
Yeah. Now, in the introduction, I said Pakistan has around about 2 million children who are sleeping rough and up to 13 million out of school. I mean, how then do you decide on which child to pick when you're out and about? I mean, what's the process?
I would come into that, is that basically what we do is we identify, for example, if when Aftab joined in and he wanted to start some centers and start the work in Lahore. So we would do a survey of the slums, I'm sorry to say, but that's how I have no other words to describe them. And we will meet and see the children and then go to them and follow, try to identify their parents and sit with the parents. And then we will discuss that we are going to start a center, and if they would allow them, they can carry on whatever they wanted to earn, but we want them to give their childhood back, even if it is for a couple of hours every day. And that's how the process is surveying the slums of a city where we plan to actually start a center.
I mean, if you think about it, Talat, you can start a center every half a mile in Pakistan. There are garbage dumps every half a mile. You've been to Pakistan. Every street. The kids are there. If we get the resources, we aim to open 100 more centers, and we still would be not even a tip of the iceberg. That's the scale of the problem. But what's started to happen is a ripple effect. And Altaf would tell you that recently a guy who's seen our program has actually said, I'm going to sponsor the whole center. Right. We just want you. So it's a ripple effect that we want to start.
He was visiting his family from Canada. And that's how he saw the program, and he said, that's it, I want to start one in my own home city. So that's how we are. It's a ripple effect.
And what actually goes on in the centers then? You decide on a child, and then you introduce them to the center, and then what happens there?
The most important thing which we introduced was the basic concept was to give the child his childhood back. As Aftab is saying, that is the key principle. Over there, they start with normal activities like playing, like carom board, table tennis, or going on picnics, and personal hygiene.
So it's introducing them to the basics of life.
So what we do, interestingly, what we do is we take toys from here and buy toys from there, try to fill in centers with toys so they can have fun with them. That's one thing. Then we've got these activities. They think they're having fun activities, but built within those activities are communication skills, leadership skills, team working skills. And then we take them to picnics, we take them to museums, take them to libraries, take them to archaeological sites, pleasure parks, and to 5-star restaurants. And that was the thing that caught me when Altaf introduced me, is taking them to a 5-star restaurant, telling the manager, you have to treat them as our children. And the first story I heard was that the first time they went, they were trying to put things in their pockets because they're never coming back.
Never coming back.
Now,
Let's
if you look
grab
at
what we
those
can.
children, Talat, they are the most well-behaved children. When I went to see one of the established centers, I had to go and ask them, are you sure these are from the streets? Because they looked as good as our children.
Right.
So they're no different.
Well, hold those thoughts. What we're going to do now is we'll get an update on the region's roads from Nikah Kel, and we'll continue our chat in a moment with Altaf and Aftab. Joining me in the studio is Professor Aftab Ahmed and Dr. Altaf Khattak from the Child Protection and Rehabilitation Trust. You were talking about how the transformation of a child came about once you I suppose introduce them back into a normal society, for want for a better description, and then thereafter, let's look at a success story. Let's look at one child's.
I'll mention two children, totally different case scenarios. One was Murad, and we have got documented video evidence of everything from the day they started with us. So when I met Murad, that was in October 2012, and I asked him, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And he said, Dr. Saab, if you buy me a donkey cart, and that's my dream. And I said, if you attend this center every day for 6 days a week, for 1 year, I promise you we'll buy you a donkey cart. And we did. This child was actually 14 years old, and his father was paralyzed with 6 siblings who were younger than him. He started using the donkey cart, actually taking, some luggage and transport and everything, and started earning about 600 to 800 rupees per day. And he was on board. He started working and started earning for his family, and then we lost track of him. And I tried to find him after another year passed, and I wanted to find what happened to. And we managed to track him down, and we asked him, Murad, so what happened? He said, I've been very busy. What happened to your donkey cart? And he said, well, I've sold it. We got really upset about it. He said, no. Now I own rickshaw.
Wow.
And I earn 3,000 rupees a day.
Amazing.
That's one. Another one is Musib. Musib actually said, what do you want to be? He said, I want to be a software engineer. And we had just picked him up from garbage dump a week before. 4 years later, he said to me, that day he said, I would like to be in one of the top-notch private institutions if I get good marks in GCSE. I said, yes, we promise you. And he rang me from Pakistan to UK along with our supervisor. And he said, Dr. Saab, I've secured the marks. Now I'm eligible to get into admission. Are you going to sponsor it? And he's now in the top-notch Edward College, Peshawar, if somebody in the private best top institution run by foreigners, actually from England and from Britain,
right.
The principals and
so
the
top
professor.
of the range school,
top
basically.
of the range school.
Yeah.
It is.
And he's doing very well.
And you're asking what do we do? Essentially what we're trying to do is we don't force them into school, because knowing our own kids, you force anybody into school, nobody wants to go. We want them to want to go to school. And again, in Lahore, a similar thing happened. We just made them play, and then a bit of study, a bit of this. These 4 kids came to me. They were 14 years old, and they said, again, Dr. Saab, we want to go to school. And I promised them, and the very same night I was visiting Pakistan, I said, how am I going to get them to school? They're 14 years old.
Yeah.
They've never been to school. So I called my sister-in-law. She's a principal there in one of the grammar schools, and I said, what am I going to do? So she pointed me to a lady who's developed an accelerated curriculum with WHO and top universities in America and the UK. She said, go and meet her. And I actually did the very next day, told her the situation. She said, give them to me for 2 years. As a matter of fact, 1 year, and I'll get them up to speed, and they will be into mainstream education.
Wow.
So we did that, and those kids are in mainstream education now, 2 years down the line. And if you look at their report cards, when they went to the school, the one got A stars, A, and the Bs.
Right.
So the four different kids, and they're in schools now. So there's story after
amazing
story.
stories.
Amazing
of
stories.
success.
I mean, story after story.
Well, we could go through many of them, but I'm afraid we are running out of time. But thank you very much. And finally, if anyone is interested in supporting the charity, how can they get in touch?
I mean, if the website is www.cprt, which is the abbreviation for Child Protection.org.uk, and all the information is there, bank details are there, and
Shall we repeat it once more? www.cprt.org.uk.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for
Thank you
coming
very
in.
much,
That's
Talat.
Professor
Thank you
Altaf
very
Ahmed
much,
and
Talat.
Dr. Altaf Khattak there. Thank you.
thank you again.